Welcome back to another exciting video, and what we are talking about today is why I am leaving and getting rid of my QSC gear. So here we are back for another video, and you may or you may not notice my surroundings have changed a little bit. Yes, this is my podcast room. I am starting a podcast, and actually I'm still working on the room, but I got to get things going because, as you know, I've had a very long break getting that house ready to be sold. So I got to get things back on the ball, and that's what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to keep things moving, get a little momentum, and let it roll and build forward. So like I said, you're looking at my new podcast room. I'm still doing a little bit of work on this. And as you can see behind me, check this out. You see, I got some sound panels and stuff up on the wall, blah, 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 blah. But this is pretty cool. Check this out. As you may or may not know, for years and years and years, I was a martial artist, and then I got old. After I've broken fingers, toes, feet. I've had concussions, broken noses, yada, yada. And I took Shaolin Kung Fu, which is a beautiful martial art, something I absolutely love. What does this have to do with music? Absolutely not a damn thing. But you know what? It's story time. By God, it's my channel, and we're going to talk a little bit. Get to know each other on a personal level. So, regardless of all that, when you take Shaolin Kung Fu, you have to have You have a primary weapon that you master, and mine was nunchucks. Secondary for me was swords. I love swords, but nunchucks are obviously more practical because you can carry them with you. Hey, you can stick them in your back pocket, throw them in your car, whatever you want to do. Kind of hard to stick this in your pocket. Trust me, I have tried. It does not work. But one thing I always wanted to do is I always wanted to have a custom forged sword. So I finally pulled the trigger on it. Took me 5 months to get this. I'll lean back a little bit here so I can get a little more comfortable. So let's bring the mic in. Thank you very much. Usually when you have these done, the swords are made out of nylon. I mean, the sheaths are covered in nylon, as is the handle. This is all custom leather on this one, which makes it seriously badass. Now, this is basically a ninjutsu sword. It does not have the square hilt like they normally do. This one does have round. But look at this. Now, this one does not have the tanto tip on it. Just set this right here. This one's got a rounded tip on it, but what I do have coming is this is a 29-inch blade, and I have a 24-inch coming that's going to match it, and it will have a tanto tip. Shorter, lighter, faster. You know what? Because you never know when you got to stab a bitch. You just never know. So something I've always wanted to do for a long time, finally got this forged. It is absolutely beautiful. And believe it or not, one of my friends did this. He lives up in Michigan, and he has a forge, and he does some forging, which is you would normally do in a forge. And he made all this for me. And yes, I did pay him, and it was worth every damn penny. And like I said, I've got part number 2, should be here in a couple of months. So just wanted to share my sword before I get onto my QSC story. Let me drop this back in the stand. And as you see, I got a 2-sword stand because I will have 2 swords. This is sword number 1. Put that back in the stand. Make sure we do not knock over pictures of my daughter because that would not be cool. Moving on with QSC. Well, Trace, what happened? Why are you getting with QSC? I'm damn glad you asked because we're going to get into that right now. So, being as I am a musician, which, you know, maybe you have not figured that out by now either, but I am a musician, and I am a gigging musician, and I've been a gigging musician for a lot of years. And actually had a chance a long time ago, I'm sure I've covered this in one of my videos, to actually make it big, to take the next step, to go, actually had an offer to go tour Europe for 6 months with a band. They lost their rhythm guitar player, and a couple of guys knew a couple of guys that knew a guy that knew me, and knew that I played guitar. And yes, I'm a lead player, but would I go play rhythm guitar for, you know, if Eddie Van Halen called me up and said, would you play rhythm guitar? You're damn right. I would go play rhythm guitar for Eddie Van Halen. So simply because he's probably a little better on lead than I am. I mean, a smidge, just a smidge. So anyway, back in the day when I was younger and much better looking than I am now, my band, when we pulled up to a venue, we literally looked like Van Halen. I pulled up with a full JVM stack with a full rack of gear. I had about $11,000 tied up in my amp at the time, and because I was stupid. And my rhythm guitar player, Spence, he's the guy that owns the Wolfgang thing that we did the video on my channel. And he was my rhythm guitar player, and he had a full stack. I'm pretty sure at that time he had the 5152. My bass player, Scott, had a full stack. Also, I had my singer, my drummer. We had our PA system. And at the time, we had a 24-channel Yamaha analog board, which was absolutely brilliant. I still have that board today, and I still love that board today. It very warm, has Motu preamps in it, ton of headroom. But it is huge because on top of all that stuff I was carrying, I was also carrying around a Yamaha P250 stage piano, which I believe weighed about 190 pounds. I've since upgraded that to my C300. You've probably seen that on my channel. And that's the one I carry around now. Getting to the point. Long way there, I know. You got to have the backstory to see what the hell's happening. So as I've gotten older and I kept gigging, I got tired of carrying all this big-ass gear around, so things started paring down. So my full stack turned into a half stack, turned into a combo, turned into a couple of those Line 6 things, the Helix and all that, which, love it or hate it, I could not stand the Helix. No matter what I did, I could not get the digital grind out of the distorted sounds. I just could not tweak that out. So I moved on to the Kemper from there, which I absolutely loved, and you've seen that in a lot of my videos, and played with that for a long time. And then I decided to give the fractal stuff a try, which I'm just digging the hell out of right now. My FM3, and I got the FC12 foot controller. Very cool layout. But as I kept paring all my gear down, except my piano, I went to the C300, which feels like it weighs 400 pounds more than my P250. I also pared down my mixer. I went with a TouchMix mixer by QSC. Now, before we get started, I love QSC gear. I always have. The speakers are phenomenal. Their power amps are phenomenal. I've never had an issue out of QSC until now. So I bought the QSC because it's a much smaller board, and it's a digital board, has a much smaller footprint. I can go to a venue, mix it all out, get everything set. I can save the scene. So if I return to that venue 1 year, 2 years, 3 years later, whatever it is, I can pull that scene back up. And it gives me a jumping off point. Because as you know, everything affects your sound, your EQ, how many people are in there, the weather outside. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it real humid? Is it very dry? All that affects your sound. But that gives me a very fast jumping off point, so I don't have to spend 20, 30 minutes tweaking and moving. I can cut that down literally to probably 5 now. So I loved it. It was a godsend for me. It was a godsend for me, excuse me. And we were at a show. I had it for about a year. We were at a show, and it turned off, out. And we're jamming. What the hell? And, first thing I suspect is I'm having guitar issues. Something's wrong. My wireless is out or something. But then I noticed immediately, well, hell, nobody's got sound but my drummer. He's over there, because he's got a analog kit, just beating the shit out of him. So he finally realizes, well, hell, there's nothing else going on either. So I look over and my QSC board, booting off. About 20 minutes of this. I would turn the button off, and it would not turn off. I could not get the unit powered off. So finally, I unplugged it, plugged it in, messed with it for a bit. And I finally got it to reboot. It got back on. We finished the show. So I come home. I get in touch with QSC. Now, I've already registered my email. I've registered all my gear at QSC. And so they tell me the problem is the pin in the power supply from plugging, unplugging, moving it around is extremely fragile. And it will short the power supply. This is a QSC power supply. I can only assume they're talking about these pins here because they say you don't unplug it from the unit. Now, I'm assuming they're not talking about unplugging it from the board. These aren't really pins, but I guess you could call these pins the metal sleeves inside here. I would call that a sleeve, not a pin. So I can only assume they're talking about these 3 prongs right here. This is the power supply. So I get a new power supply, I hook it up, it works fine. And then here we are a year later, getting ready for a show. What the hell? I go over, reboot, off, reboot, off, reboot, off. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. This shit cannot be happening again. Except this time, after about 20 minutes of doing it, it came up and it said needed an update. And I was like, well, that's weird. We're not on Wi-Fi. How does it know it needs an update? So at that point, I finally get it to reboot. Again, we finish our practice. I come home. I instantly jump on the good old PC in there, and I fire off an email to QSC. But before I could do anything, I had to re-register all my gear again, and I find that to be very strange. So I fired them off an email, and of course, my opening line is, first, I had to re-register my email and all my gear, and I find that to be very strange. So then I go on to tell them I have a touch mix a couple of years ago. The unit started turning off and on constantly. You all sent me a new power supply and said not to unplug the unit from itself, because this has a plug that goes into here. This side goes to the wall. This side goes to the actual board. Due to a pin or something. I got the new power supply and no problems, as the PS has never been disconnected from itself. We are a busy, gigging 4-piece band, and we are finally to the point where we're needing to upgrade our board. And we were looking at the Pro 30. QSC makes two other touch mixes. They make the Touch Mix 8 and the Touch Mix 16. And the 8 has 8 channels with 2 stereo channels, so it's actually 10 channels, but they call it 12 because you get 2 stereo. And then the Touch Mix 16, you have 16 channels plus 2 stereo, so it's actually 18, but there's 20. Regardless of all that. So the board starts turning off and on again repeatedly for probably 20 minutes before I finally got it to reboot without saying it needs an update, which is weird because it is not on Wi-Fi. We covered that. Regardless, I did the update. Still the same issue. It turns itself off and on probably for 20 minutes before I can get it back to a usable state. Now, I'm reinforcing my relationship with them, being as I am a musician. I love QSC products, but there is something inherently wrong here, as this is the second time I've had the same exact issue. And before I buy a QSC 30, I kind of need to know what's happening, as our job is to play, not troubleshoot your gear. Especially at shows. Sorry, but this is extremely aggravating, as this is the second time this has happened, and once during the show. So they fire me back an email and pretty much tell me nothing I wanted to hear. Thank you for reaching out to QSC Tech Support. We are sorry to hear that you're facing again the issues with the power supply for your touch mix. As you might remember from past situations, this happens because the pins inside the plug connector might got loose. That's right, might got loose. Maybe from a rough movement or something related, because the pins are very sensitive. I know a couple people who are very sensitive also. As you state, that is not being disconnected from the mixer. This might happen as well. Okay, so let's pause right there. So you're telling me not to unplug it from itself because it will become damaged because it's sensitive. Now you're telling me not to unplug it from the mixer at all because it might become damaged because it's sensitive. So I'm not exactly sure where the winning side of this is for me. Because if I unplug it, I lose. If I keep it plugged up, I lose. So they go on. As you informed us that the device required an update, doing this will not fix your issue. Well, no shit. I did it anyway, but yes, it did not fix my issue. So, and they go on to say, if you're thinking about upgrading to the touch mix, the problem will be avoided because it takes a standard 3-pin normal power cord like everything else in the world does, as this should do, but it does not. Plus all the benefits you have for having that mixer. Well, not if the benefit is it breaks down. Because I don't know, I do not have experience with the QSC 30, as I'd had no experience with the smaller touch mixes until I bought them, and then all of a sudden, boom, I have issues. We recommend you to acquire a new power supply from our web page to prevent this problem with power outage still happening. They need to hire somebody to write their emails. Here's a link where you can find it. And of course, I go there and it's $90, $109 plus $20 for shipping, something insane. So $130. So now I'm on power supply number 3. By the way, they end us up. Feel free to reach back anytime. Have a great day. Well, I'm not having a great day, QSC. Did they give me somebody's name down here? Ivan. Not having a great day, bro. Not having a great day at all. So I read this email, and of course, this does not satisfy what I'm trying to get to here. What I'm trying to get to is this going to be a continual problem? In other words, did you all fix and upgrade your piece of shit power supply? That's actually what I'm trying to get to here. So I replied back, I honestly find this hard to believe. Not only has this unit never been unplugged from itself, it is packed separate from the board. I disconnect it from the board because this is the part you're not supposed to unplug. I disconnect it from the board with my fractal and pack it with my fractal gear, which is literally wrapped in a towel for moving. From what you all said from the last time this happened about it being extremely fragile, I should have used sensitive, which I find surprising for gigging gear because everyone knows the rigor of the road. So can I assume that this new power supply will exhibit the same exact issues in time? So at this point, I have ordered the power supply. I have no choice. I got shows coming up, and it's either buy a $130 power supply or get a new board. Well, yeah, getting a new board is obviously an option, but now I've got to go through, if it's a different board, now I got to learn the board. I got to get everything set up from zero, and I did not have time for that. So the only option I had was to buy the power supply. So they reply back, and if you remember the last sentence of my last email, so can I assume the new power supply will exhibit the same exact issues in time? So they fire me back an email, and they say to me, hello, Thomas, which is my real name, by the way, for those of you who don't know. And if you hear this thing that sounds like a lightsaber going off, that is one of my friends blowing up my cell phone, and it's so hopefully you're not picking that up. We are so sorry for that. Well, you're not that damn sorry because you're charging me $130 each time I got to buy one of these damn things. And we are glad to read that you take care of your equipment with extreme precautions. Not that it matters because the shit breaks anyway. As we stated before, this trouble might happen because one of the pins inside of the power supply plug got loose only from regular use. So exactly what am I supposed to use this for if I cannot use it for regular use? So what exactly am I supposed to use this for if I cannot use it for regular use? When you're a gigging band, your gear, it goes through hell. I mean, you should see my 96 Wolfgang. I'm surprised it looks as good as it does for all the shows I've played with it. But it's battle ready, and it's got its scars. It's definitely got its scars. You know, my Marshall, a Marshall 4x12 cab, there's rips in the Tolex, and it's got a few dents here and there in it because it's road gear. You load shit up, you travel, you unpack shit, you set it all up, you play your brains out, you pack it all back up, throw it back into the car, then you take it back to wherever you practice at and you unload it all again. So if I can't use it for normal use, then you sure as hell can't use it for road use, for gigging use, because that's a lot harder than normal. So I got loose from regular use. And even if you tried to press it back in its original state with some tweezers, because everybody knows that when you open up your manly toolkit, the first thing that's in there is tweezers. You never know when you're going to need them. I'll have to plug some shit. You don't know that. The issue will probably happen once again. Okay, we strongly recommend you acquire a new PSU, power supply unit, to avoid them. Okay, they didn't know I'd already purchased this. So basically what they're saying is this is going to happen again. So let's put this in perspective. You're charging $1,000, $1,200, $1,500, $1,600, whatever the hell it is now, for gear that is faulty the day you buy it. it is guaranteed to happen again. This is power supply number 2. I got number 3 packed in a towel with my fractal gear, believe it or not, because it's so sensitive. The problem I have with it, besides the constant failure, is this is not the answer I wanted to hear. The answer I wanted to hear is that, yes, Thomas, yes, Mr. Taylor, your new power supply is fixed. We redesigned the unit to make sure that it does not fail you on the road where you're going to be using your mixer. That's what I wanted to hear. Instead, what I heard was the issue will probably happen once again. Who the hell sends that out to somebody? I'm not going to sell you a product. It breaks. I send you another product. It breaks. I send you a third product. And then sit there and tell you, guess what? It's going to happen. Well, at least they're honest. Yes, it's going to happen again. So at least they're honest. But what it breaks down to is, how can I support a company who does not support me, the musician, the gigging musician? I'm not the only person that buys this gear. All of us buy this gear. And if QSC is not going to support us for buying their gear, why should we continue to give them money? They admit their product is faulty. And like I said, I am on my 3rd one now, and it is going to fail. When I go to a show, I take multiple guitars for a couple of reasons. One, because certain guitars do certain things. They all do not do the same thing, obviously. Well, they all do the same thing, but some do it better than others. But they all don't sound the same way. And you might have alternate tunings. You might need one with a tremolo. You might need one with a hardtail. But at every show, I have my 96 Wolfgang, because there's certain songs I have to have that particular guitar on. And then I have one of my Ibanez's, and I have a backup for my Ibanez. First off, I just simply don't need a backup for the Wolfgang. It does not let me down, ever. 96, I bought that thing. I've never broken a string on that Wolfgang, not one time. So I don't even worry about a backup for that guitar. And no, I did not jinx myself, because I talk about it all the time, how I'm shocked I've never broken a string on it. But I do carry backup for my Ibanez, not because they're bad guitars. I love Ibanez. You've seen my videos of them. I adore Ibanez. And so far, they've never let me down, so I support them. But the reason I have a backup for the Ibanez is because the Ibanez's, they do get played more than my Wolfgangs. I use it on select songs that just require a tremendous amount of volume control, up and down, up and down, up and down. But my Ibanez's, the tremolos just get destroyed at one of our shows. I mean, I'm down, I'm up, I'm all the way against the body, I'm pulling it up, I pull it up, and bounce it off. It takes a brutal workout. So I do have a backup in case one of the strings pops, or hell, in case I just end up snapping the damn tremolo right out of the guitar one day. Because, dude, I'm excessively hard on those tremolo systems on the Ibanez's, and they've held up like a beast to this point. And so I do have a backup for that, just in case that happens. But I did not know I needed a backup board for my board, which apparently, according to QSC, I do. Now, you don't say, well, you don't have to carry another board, Trace. Why don't you just get a backup power supply? Because I'm sick and tired of buying fucking forgive me. I'm sick and tired of buying power supplies. And yes, I could buy another $130 power supply to back up for the power supply that I know is going to break. So I can use this one. Then I got to buy backup for this one because I know it's going to break. And it's going to be an ongoing problem until QSC gets off their ass and decides to redesign the product. Because guess what? You have one job, QSC. I have one job. My job is to play and perform. Your job is to support me by making gear that works. That's your only function here. Nothing else. You don't have to come to my shows. You don't have to load my shit up. You don't have to set my stuff. You don't have to do anything. Just make gear I can count on. That's it. And you're not even doing that. So I have no choice now but to move on to something else, because this is going to be a consistent failure. And because of the way they've handled it by making me buy these power supplies, I now no longer want to buy their Touch Mix 30, even though it may not have the issue. I'm not going to continue to reward you by buying your product when you keep penalizing me for having to pay to fix your product. You should be giving me these for free because you know it is an issue. It is a known problem, and you're not doing anything to resolve the problem. But why should you when you make these for $35 and we got to keep buying them for $130? So on that note, If you have any comments, put it in the comments section. If you have any questions, put it in the comments section. Yes, I am pissed off at QSC right now. They have, man, they've done me wrong, bro, and I'm not happy about it at all. And so I am going to move on because I'm pretty much a one and done guy. And, you know, I'm starting a new podcast. I've got the first video shot. I haven't had a chance to get it up yet, but I'll have that up in a day or two. And the first one's a completely off topic, but I've got one coming up about this very thing, things that let you down, and you keep buying the same things over and over and over. I'm actually doing one on Dodge getting rid of the V8 motor, which is just an absolute bonehead, stupid idea. Hence the name of my podcast is Close-Minded. So, and I will put a link to that on my YouTube channel. There will be some political stuff on there, so if you're not into that, you may not want to subscribe, but there will also be many other topics on there besides that, because I do have one coming up about the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And never in my life have I seen a movie where I wanted the four main characters to die immediately. I was rooting for Leatherface. Please, for the love of God, murder these four people. The faster the better, because they could have literally started the movie, murdered them, boom, done. It'd have been excellent. But instead, it droned on to a bunch of, well, that'll be on my podcast. So until then, like the great Sammy Hagar says, you miss the beat, you lose the rhythm, and nothing falls into place. And that works for everything in your life, just not music. Whatever instrument you are playing, play it to the best of your ability and practice. God bless everybody. God bless the people in Ukraine. I'm not going to talk about the war and stuff on here, but that is a travesty that is happening, and everybody deserves our prayers. So until the next time, God bless everybody, and rock on.